Welcome to Practically Political. It's great to see you again. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield. Great to have you. Well, we had so much news with the Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire coming up. I'm curious, Dave, do you think there is any viable path for Nikki Haley? I think there could be if only Ron DeSantis drops out and perhaps Chris Christie urges his supporters to show up big for her. But neither's going to happen. And I think it's going to be 2016 all over again. But what do you think?
Yeah, I guess my question about Nikki Haley is, let's say that she wins New Hampshire. And again, that's a big if, because we have to remember 2016 is what really, when New Hampshire is what put Trump on the map. He had lost to Ted Cruz in Iowa, and New Hampshire, he got a big win, and that sent him on his way. So, but let's put all that aside and assume that Nikki Haley does win. I guess my big question is, what next? Because if you look at her, where her vote came from, Trump got over 60% of people who say they're very conservative, almost 50% of people who say they're somewhat conservative. And the rest of the vote, which is the anti Trump vote, the independents, people that are the more liberal wings of the Republican Party, though there aren't many of those left, they all went for Haley. So I don't see how she has a path, because Nevada has been basically jury rigged. So Trump has that in the bag. And even though South Carolina is her home state, it's very evangelical and it's a demography that's much more suited to Trump. So as much as I would love to say, yes, she has a chance, and if she wins New Hampshire, that it's going to be a two-person race, I would say no. I think it's pretty much a baked cake, which is a very sad thing for me to say. And Ron DeSantis dropping out, I think, would also help Trump more, because I think I'd say 80% of his voters would go to Trump, because I've seen repeated polls where almost all Ron DeSantis voters say that their second choice is Trump. So we'll get to Ron DeSantis in a moment, but unfortunately, I think that as people would say, stick a fork in this one. It's done. What say you?
I think you're right. I think the only chance that Nikki Haley has of pulling out some sort of miraculous victory in New Hampshire is that enough independents cross over, because it is an open primary for independents. They are allowed to vote in the primary in New Hampshire. So if she's able to galvanize enough, like you said, independent or Republican, more liberal leaning Republicans, then she could eke something out. But I think that the tepid lack of endorsement from Chris Christie that hurt her, because a lot of his supporters would have been natural Nikki Haley supporters. And what's really telling, I believe it was NBC News, they found that 71% of Nikki Haley supporters in Iowa said that they would vote for Joe Biden over Donald Trump in the general election. That was pretty telling to me. So the thing about New Hampshire, it is more independent than some other states. So people are willing to buck the national party. So they might be more willing to buck the national party to go for Nikki Haley as opposed to Trump. But I don't think it's going to be enough. So I'm with you, Dave. I think it's going to be a really hard path for her. I think also in South Carolina, if you were talking about the general election as opposed to the primary, then I think she would have a much better shot in South Carolina, or even just a primary of all South Carolinian voters for the Republican nomination. Then it would be Nikki Haley, I would guess. But it's not. It's a Republican primary in South Carolina. So some people were trying to say, well, this could be, like Joe Biden 2020 is who Nikki Haley could be. That's who Ari Melbar said when I was on MSNBC this week. And he said he thinks Nikki Haley has a shot, especially in South Carolina. And I said, she doesn't have a secret weapon down there. There's no Joe Clyburn or Jim Clyburn of South Carolina for her. So anyway, that's my take.
Yeah, I agree. And let's face it, because Biden's not on the ballot in New Hampshire, even if Nikki Haley were to win, because the Democrats have essentially nixed the New Hampshire primary, Trump can easily say, oh, it was rigged. This doesn't count. It's not a real primary. She doesn't have a real win. So it's going to be very easy for Trump and his voters to dismiss a win if she is able to win. But I will say one thing in defense of Nikki Haley, and a lot of people have been so frustrated, and I am as well, about how she's trying to, what many people think, very weakly appeal to Trump's voters without directly criticizing Trump. Why aren't you going after Trump? And her lame excuse was, well, people who hate Trump think I'm not tough on enough on him, and people think or that I'm I'm too not tough enough. People who love Trump think I'm too tough. And the bottom line is, if she crosses any type of Rubicon where she's thought of as being anti-Trump, then she becomes the eye in the storm of the MAGA crowd, if you will. And it's the rest of her campaign is going to be defending every day. How could you betray Donald Trump? How did you do this? So as frustrating as it is, I give her credit. I think she's actually done a pretty skillful job navigating very, very perilous waters. But having said that, again, her appeal, and I think if there was the final straw that broke the camel's back, if you pardon the cliche, it was when Chris Christie got caught on that hot mic saying that she's going to get smoked, she's not up to it, which A, showed that he wasn't going to support her, but probably more importantly, he just feels that she's a lightweight and that she doesn't have the voters or the path to the nomination. So I think it's been a noble effort, but I think it's done. But I